The rain tapped softly against the apartment window while Elijah sat on the edge of his bed staring at the glowing numbers on the clock. Again, the room was dark except for the small desk lamp beside his Bible. His notebook lay open with unfinished prayers scattered across the pages. God, what am I waiting for? His voice cracked when he whispered it. For months, everything in his life felt paused. No job opportunities, no open doors, no clear direction, just silence. He had graduated almost a year ago, full of dreams and plans, believing everything would finally come together. But instead, it felt like heaven had gone quiet. Every day he watched people around him move forward while he remained stuck. His best friend Daniel had launched a successful business. His cousin got married. People from church posted testimonies online every week. And Elijah? He was still waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for peace, waiting for God to answer. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked down at the open pages of Scripture. Earlier that evening during Bible study, their pastor had spoken about the first chapter of Acts. One verse would not leave Elijah's mind. Wait for the promise of the Father. The words echoed in his spirit. At first he hated that verse. Wait, that was exactly what he was tired of doing. He closed the Bible and leaned back against the wall, frustrated. Why does waiting always feel like punishment? Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Elijah remembered how excited the disciples must have felt after Jesus rose from the dead. They had seen miracles with their own eyes. Surely now was the moment everything would happen. Surely now they would step into power immediately. But Jesus told him something unexpected. Wait, not for a few minutes, not for a quick prayer. Wait until the promise came. Elijah sighed deeply. Waiting sounded spiritual when preachers said it behind pulpits. But at 2 a.m. in a lonely apartment, waiting felt heavy, very heavy. The next morning, sunlight pushed through the curtains as his phone buzzed beside him. 3 missed calls from his mother. He answered groggily, "Mom? Elijah, are you awake?" "Barely. You promised to help your uncle move furniture today." He closed his eyes. He completely forgot. An hour later, he stood outside his uncle's small repair shop downtown. The street smelled of wet pavement after the storm. Cars rushed past while people hurried to work with coffee cups in hand. His Uncle Marcus waved him over. "There you are. Sorry I'm late." Marcus laughed. "You look like you fought demons all night." Elijah forced a smile. "Feels like it?" His uncle studied him carefully but said nothing. Inside the shop were old wooden shelves, dusty boxes, broken radios, and tools scattered everywhere. It smelled like engine oil and coffee. As they worked, Marcus finally spoke. "You've been quiet lately?" "I'm okay." "That means you're not okay." Elijah shrugged. "I just thought life would look different by now." Marcus nodded slowly, like he understood more than Elijah realized. "When I was your age," he said, lifting a toolbox, "I thought God forgot me too." Elijah looked over. "You? Oh yes," Marcus chuckled. "You think faith means never struggling?" He placed the toolbox down and leaned against the counter. "There was a season where I prayed every day for direction. Nothing happened. Doors closed. People left. I thought waiting meant God was absent. What if he is?" Elijah muttered quietly. Marcus looked him directly in the eyes. "Then why are you still searching for him?" The question hit harder than Elijah expected. Because despite the frustration, despite the silence, despite the exhaustion, something inside him still believed, still hoped, still waited. Marcus wiped his hands with a cloth and continued. "You know what I learned? Waiting with God is never wasted time." Elijah looked away. "It feels wasted, because you only see movement of progress. The words settled deeply into his heart. That evening, Elijah walked home slowly beneath orange sunset skies. The city lights flickered awake, one by one, while the cold breeze brushed against his jacket. He stopped at a small park near his apartment. Children laughed near the swings. Couples walked hand in hand. A street musician played softly nearby. Life kept moving. Elijah sat alone on a bench. His thoughts wandered back to Acts 1. The disciples waited together in an upper room after Jesus ascended into heaven. They didn't know exactly when the promise would come. They only knew he said it would. Maybe that was the hardest part of faith. Trusting before seeing. Elijah lowered his head. God, I don't know what you're doing. His eyes filled with tears. But I'm still here. The wind moved gently through the trees. No thunder, no dramatic sign, just quiet peace. For the first time in weeks, Elijah stopped demanding answers and simply sat with God. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing miraculous happened overnight, but something inside Elijah slowly began changing. Instead of waking up anxious every morning, he started praying before touching his phone. Instead of constantly comparing his life to others online, he spent more time reading scripture. Instead of begging God to hurry, he began asking God to prepare him. One afternoon during church rehearsal, the worship leader asked Elijah to share a short devotion with the young adults group. Normally he would say no immediately, but this time he agreed. That Friday night he stood nervously in front of about 20 people sitting in folding chairs. His hands shook slightly. I've been reading Acts chapter 1 lately, he began quietly. And honestly, I used to hate the idea of waiting. A few people laughed softly. Elijah smiled. But I realized something. The disciples weren't waiting because God abandoned them. They were waiting because God was preparing them. The room grew still, and sometimes we want God to send us before He's finished building us. He paused. I thought waiting meant nothing was happening, but maybe heaven works in hidden places first. A girl in the back wiped tears from her eyes. Elijah continued speaking, and for the first time in months, he felt alive again. Not because all his problems disappeared, but because purpose returned. After the service, people came up to thank him. One young man said, "That message felt like it was exactly for me." Elijah walked home that night overwhelmed. Not with success, not with fame, but with peace. The kind that quietly reminds you God is near. Weeks later, an unexpected email arrived offering Elijah an internship opportunity with a media company he once dreamed about working for. He stared at the screen in disbelief. The timing shocked him, not because God finally remembered him, but because now Elijah realized something important. If the opportunity had come earlier, he wouldn't have been ready for it. All those lonely nights, all the silence, all the waiting. God had been shaping him in secret. Months later, Elijah sat on the rooftop of his apartment building, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold and pink. His Bible rested open beside him. Acts chapter 1 again. He smiled softly as he reread the words. Wait for the promise of the Father. This time the verse felt different. No longer frustrating. No longer heavy. Now it felt comforting, because he finally understood. Waiting with God is not empty. Sometimes the waiting room is where faith grows strongest, where character is built, where pride breaks, where trust deepens. Sometimes God delays what you want because He's preparing you for what you prayed for. Elijah closed his eyes as the morning breeze moved around him. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of waiting anymore.